Welcome back to the Daily Dope. I'm Brandon Strong, your friendly commentator. Now, I've been complaining about the Democratic Party for a couple years now on this channel. And one of the complaints, well, pretty much my main complaint with them on this channel about this topic is this whole idea that they're real shy about the marijuana issue. In fact, even though 74% of Democratic voters say that they are for legalization of marijuana, and over 85% say they're for medical marijuana, and the numbers around the same for decriminalization, Democratic candidates still act as though it's a touchy issue and that they might lose voters in a net loss if they, publicly say that they're going to be for marijuana. And they always get asked. So, every time they get asked, we hear the reasons, and usually it's, since Hillary said it, it's been kind of like the standard bearer for excuses. And it used to be the old excuse for medical marijuana, but now it's for regular legalization, which don't make much sense. But the old, well, we're gonna keep looking at the places that already did it, and we're gonna see how they're doing and see how things go, because we're worried about potential sky falling type shit. I guess, I don't know. And now this guy's been on my radar ever since he was picked to do this Trump response thing, and the reason that he's been on my radar is because he's staunchly opposed to legalizing marijuana. As a representative from Massachusetts, Joe Kennedy III has came out publicly against marijuana several times. So, what you have here is you have Ezra Klein. He does fluff pieces for neoliberal candidates to try to prop them up still. And he's trying his hardest to do that with Joe Kennedy. He really is. He wants you to like Joe Kennedy at all costs. Unfortunately, the more Joe Kennedy talks, the less things you can find to like about him. If you're a liberal or a progressive leftist, if you're a right-wing politician, you probably want to see this guy like put in some kind of gulag or something, I guess. I don't know. Which don't make sense, because a lot of his positions are kind of to the right of center in a lot of the things that I would criticize him for. And when it comes to what I'm reporting to and talking about on this channel, which is the drug war or even the legalization of marijuana, he's to the right of a lot of Republicans that I could name off. Now, I'm not going to listen to any of this because, you know what? I did not listen to this hour-long podcast to try to figure out where these tidbits were. I did find some good articles floating around, and probably the best one was the, spoiler alert, the Boston.com situation. And, they ought to know because they've been reporting about this guy probably his whole life. So let's see what they got to say about it. Joe Kennedy III explains why he's one of the few Democrats not so hot about pot. What is he doing here? He's posing in front of some kind of a Mustang supercar or some shit. I mean, is that just some of his toys he's got back there? Because this guy is way out of touch, and you'll see why in a minute. Over the past decade, Massachusetts has been one of the states at the forefront of the pro-marijuana movement. In fact, they legalized it last year, or 2016 now. We're getting 2 years ago. One of the state's rising political stars is not on board. Quote, "This one is a tough one for me because my views do not exactly line up with my own state, and it's something that I'm struggling with," Representative Joe Kennedy III said in a podcast interview this week with Vox.com's Ezra Klein. Even as he has seen his national profile continue to rise, the 37-year-old Democrat congressman has taken heat from the left over his opposition to marijuana legalization, including for medical purposes. What? Which has become increasingly popular both within his party and across the country. So he has voiced opposition even for medical marijuana. I mean, you can't even find a Democrat I mean, you got to go to places where people don't even have electricity still to find somebody that's against medical marijuana. Especially somebody that claims to be on the left side of the spectrum of politics. All right, let's go on. After he was tagged to deliver his party's response to President Donald Trump's State of the Union address in January, pro-marijuana outlets scoured Kennedy's voting history in the House and found that he was among the few Democrat representatives who consistently voted against even mildly pro-marijuana bills, even measures that many Republicans supported, as I have said. The National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, NORML, gives Kennedy a D grade, which is tied for the lowest grade among the group's scorecard for Massachusetts' all-Democrat congressional delegation. Now, don't get me wrong, I follow this stuff, and in state politics, there's a few Democrats there that I'm not too happy with. Throughout the last couple years, they've basically tried everything they could to stall the legalization process and to try to change what the will of the voters was, like what they're trying to do in Maine right now. But, all said and done, none of them are as bad as Kennedy, so he should have got an E grade, but whatever. Quote, I don't think marijuana should be legalized, Kennedy flatly told Boston Magazine in 2016, 2 months before Massachusetts voters approved a referendum to do just that. Now, one of the other reasons why this guy's on my radar is because, once again, shout out to Tom Angel. He's been on this guy's case since back then, and I've seen him talking and tweeting about him and writing articles about him, and I'm like, what's all the fuss about? Well, this is what all the fuss is about. Quote, we just got to be thoughtful about this, he told Klein. It's not something where I want to get into a position where you kind of rush through, because clearly political opinion is on one side of this and moving pretty hard in one direction. Now, he's about to reveal something about inside the Beltway politics, all right? Because what we're seeing is with a lot of these Democrats, it's not that they're really worried about losing votes, because they would not gain votes if they came out full-throated for marijuana. Even Republican candidates might come out with a net gain in voters if they came out full-throated for marijuana and they weren't horrible on some other issues. But what I'm getting at here is he wasn't really worried about what the fucking voters felt like about this shit. He was more worried about what the donors felt like. And you're going to see a little bit why in a minute. I know you already know why. This guy is just swimming in fucking corruption, all right? Kennedy spokeswoman Emily Kaufman, and he can't even say the hardest statements himself, so he's going to let her say it. Says the congressman thinks the finalized regulations for Massachusetts' legal marijuana market, which were released this week by the state's Cannabis Control Commission, are, quote, a step in the right direction, though he still has some worries. Quote, he still has public health and safety concerns regarding issues like driving under the influence and adolescent access, which he hopes the state will prioritize as it moves closer to implementation. Now, I will give you this. That's a legitimate position to hold for most politicians that are to the right of center on this issue. Now, a lot of Democrats fall in line with that line of thinking there. And I think it's mainly just because they're basically kind of given like a little sign, like a smoke signal to their friends, their corrupt buddies, that, hey, we're still going to let the cops do their thing with the driving under the influence, and we're still going to let the juvenile justice system have all these kids that smoke weed. We know that there's a lot of money in that shit, and we're going to let that keep going. That's what those two bird whistles are about. In his interview with Klein, the congressman cited some of the unintended consequences of decriminalizing and legalizing the drug. Recalling his days working as a state prosecutor when Massachusetts voted in 2008 to decriminalize marijuana, Kennedy said that the decision affected the ability of police officers to search and seize other illegal items, such as guns, from vehicles. Now you're talking about a fucking right-wing talking point. And I mean, this is a hard right. Quote, if you smell marijuana in a car, you could search in a car, Kennedy said. When it became decriminalized, you couldn't do that. Well, let me remind you, Mr. Kennedy, that's your Fourth Amendment right to not be fucking unreasonably searched. So you're just saying that you pretty much want to search everybody, especially somebody that smells like marijuana. You just want to search people. You want, when someone gets pulled over, you feel like, well, I wish we can just search them. Why can't we just take away the Fourth Amendment? What's the big holdup here? And why should fucking someone smelling like weed be a cause for you to take away their Fourth Amendment rights? I don't care if it's illegal on the federal level and, you know, the penalties are what they are. It's ridiculous anyway, but come on. And let's not forget, need I remind people, remember Philando Castile? Philando. Yeah, him. He was a legitimate permitted gun carrier who had a CCW and had a permit for it. Was pulled over, told the cop he had a permit for his gun, was going for his ID. The cop shot him, killed him. His girlfriend live streamed it on Facebook while it was happening. Or while he died, actually. She didn't get the gunshots or whatever, but she started filming after that, and he died shortly thereafter. Remember, the cop who killed Philando Castile repeatedly blamed the smell of marijuana for his fear of the driver, saying that I didn't say anything about the smell of marijuana. I didn't want to escalate the situation. See, that's the problem, man, is the police do not have the proper education and training to be dealing with fucking people when you pull them over and they smell like marijuana anyway. They're just killing people because they fucking don't understand what's going on. Alright? Philando Castile was a fucking pillar of the community, known as Mr. Phil, a kind man who supervised the food program in an elementary school cafeteria. And yeah, one of the things is that Mr. Phil was remembered for helping kids that couldn't afford lunches. He started a fundraiser was started in his honor, and it's just sad, you know. It's the kind of policing we don't want. All right, we don't want people to just smell weed and say, "Oh, we need to search you. We need to take away all your rights. We need to just shoot you. Oh, you were smoking weed in the car?" All right, Klein later argued that that change was probably for the good, given the racial disparities that exist in the legal system's treatment of marijuana, which Kennedy conceded was a good point. He don't give a fuck. He's like the ultimate example of white privilege, like corrupt douchebag. All right, if you don't fucking believe me, just watch his rebuttal speech to Trump's State of the Union. It's fucking garbage. It's the most vapid collection of shitty platitudes you've ever seen assembled by somebody that absolutely is so disconnected from anything he's talking about that it just comes across as completely fucking fake and plastic. Anyway, back to the article. Another criminal justice concern Kennedy expressed was the lack of an admissible roadside test to determine whether a driver is operating under the influence of marijuana. Whoops. Which he said would be an increased threat with more widespread use. All right, I always talk about this bullshit. They're never going to have that test. They're always going to spend money trying to find it. There's no such thing as that test. There is no such thing as being too impaired on fucking marijuana to drive, or you wouldn't drive. And that kind of impairment when you're on marijuana usually only lasts about 20 seconds while the fucking head rush fades. Furthermore, you know, this whole idea that there's going to be this big increase of use of marijuana just because you legalized it is the biggest fucking thing, and it's been proven wrong everywhere where they legalize marijuana. And teen use usually goes down pretty good. It don't go down like super big, but why would it? You know, why should it? It's just another thing like cigarettes. You know, they tried to get rid of Joe Camel, but fucking people still smoked. The reason people quit smoking is because people got sick of seeing their fucking grandpas and grandmas dying of fucking lung cancer. You know why people quit smoking? Well, the price of a pack of smoke is pretty much out of most people's price range. To have that for a daily habit of something that don't fucking benefit you at all. All right, here's some more quotes. Quote, I think it's worth us understanding, do we have the tools that are necessary to keep the community safe as we try to actually go through and make this a substance that is far more widespread, he told Klein. This isn't making marijuana far more widespread, dipshit. The drug war already did a great job of that. Thanks to the fucking drug war, the black market got its veins in every small town in America. And wherever there wasn't that, someone was probably just growing the shit. It ain't like it's that hard to fucking grow. So, your whole idea that you have controlled the substance with prohibition is bullshit. Prohibition created a mushrooming out of all drug use, all drug manufacture, profits, everything. Kennedy's other big concern aligns with one of the issues he's often spoke about. Quote, "One of my main focuses in Congress is on mental health and addiction, and there are a number of voices in that community that pose serious questions about either the decriminalization or legalization efforts." Yeah, as in their fucking gravy train is about to get cut off. Addiction, there is no fucking proof that marijuana is addictive enough for anybody to have any problem with it to where they have to go to addiction treatment. The only proof you got there is your statistics that you put together with fucking, snarling people into the system, telling them, oh, if you go to rehab instead of jail, but you got to swear that you were addicted to marijuana. And then you got to go to this rehab place that you have to pay for and that the fucking state is making money off of. Or the corrupt fuckers like Chris Christie own shares in the companies. So that's all you're seeing there. Mental health what? You guys have zero evidence that cannabis has anything to do with mental health issues. So you guys keep talking about that. This is another one of those reefer madness from the right wing. Are you fucking serious right now? This guy is A, supposed to be a Democrat. B, I guess that means he's supposed to be liberal. It doesn't fucking sound like it. And C, a Kennedy. What the hell, man? You know John F. Kennedy? You ever heard of him? He was for legalizing marijuana. Are you kidding, man? This is just ridiculous. John F. Kennedy used medical marijuana also in the White House. So, I don't know what kind of negative shit he said about medical marijuana, but I can only imagine what it is. It's probably the same shit we get from the right-wingers, the same shit we get from these so-called doctors and addiction experts. All those people's livelihoods depend on marijuana being illegal. Because they're just there. That's just what they've been there for the whole time. It's all just inflated by this fake law and this bullshit Controlled Substances Act. One of those voices in the family is a family member, Patrick Kennedy, a former Rhode Island congressman and Kennedy's first cousin once removed, who founded the anti-legalization group Smart Approaches to Marijuana. Bingo. There's your third reason why this guy is completely for prohibition. And we all know about Sam, who opposes the legalization of commercialization of marijuana, cannabis. The group has argued that while the federal government shouldn't be cracking down on cannabis users, it should reserve as a needed check against an exploding for-profit marijuana industry that often prioritizes profits over public health and safety. No, that would be the big pharma, the big tobacco, and the big alcohol. All people who fill your pockets with money, Patrick Kennedy, and also Joe Kennedy. You're not fucking fooling anyone with your little charade, trying to act like you're trying to do the right thing for the greater good, because it's totally it's as gross as it can get, man. It's disgusting. And you're really ruining the Kennedy name. Both of you guys. You're garbage. Just stop it already. And the Democratic Party, you need to really do a fucking reality check with yourself. Calling this guy somebody that you have aspirations for to do a 2020 presidential run? Are you fucking kidding me? Give me a break. Kennedy walks a similar line, arguing that the government needs to look at the effect of legalization on not just average citizens, but also those who are more at risk of abusing the substance. Hey, why don't you go check it out, man? We got Colorado, Washington. They've been legal for a while now. You'll find all kinds of data there. How about go to Portugal or Amsterdam? See what they're telling you. Because I know it ain't what you're worried about. The casual marijuana user isn't something that I have a whole lot of concerns about, he told Klein. Oh, well, we have a lot of concerns about you, buddy. Amid the Trump administration's repeal of rules allowing states leeway to police marijuana and uncertainty over the Justice Department's treatment of legal cannabis in Massachusetts, Kennedy called federal policy on the issue, quote, a nightmare. Democrats have introduced ambitious legislation in the Senate and House that would legalize marijuana at the federal level, but Kennedy, who is not a co-sponsor of the House bill, wants a more cautious approach. Whatever, dude. We don't want you around, dude. I think all this shit is going to do is it's going to be bad for you when you have to go up for re-election, because this shit's coming back to bite you. I guarantee it, dude. It's time for these Democrats to start realizing that cannabis is a fucking real issue. And if the cannabis community can't get together and kick these kind of fucking idiots out, what good is our vote? What power do we have? We should all agree that this guy has got to go. If you live in Massachusetts, do your part. Quote, it is a mess, he said of current policy, and that's something that Congress has to clean up a bit, but it's something that I think we need to be deliberate about and careful about as we try to plot this forward, because it's not quite as simple. At least I don't view it as quite as simple as some other folks do. Well, that's because they don't have as much big pharma and all this other corrupt bullshit money in their background. And let's not get it twisted. This guy, his grandpa Joe Kennedy was a fucking bootlegger, right? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he just sold, he was an alcohol distributor during Prohibition. Was he a bootlegger or not? I don't know. There's a lot of whitewashing going on trying to clean up the Kennedy name that say he wasn't a bootlegger. I don't fucking believe any of it. And he was an investor. When was he an investor? Right before the stock market crashed, and somehow he still made millions of dollars. He was worth $250 million at one point, which would make him a billionaire in today's standards. And instead of all that money just kind of like trickling into everybody's bank accounts, they set up a bunch of trusts with it, so that everybody, the trust is just this one big giant pile of money that just kicks interest payments and trust, dividends out periodically, so that it's just this giant nest egg. So he really don't even need all this corrupt money that keeps coming his way. Well, let's check this shit out. And speaking of what, this is his campaign financing. All right. These are the top contributors. You have Big Bank, Bank of America, Harvard University, Securities and Investments, lawyers and law firms. We're just gonna do campaign committee only for the 2018. This is the cycle for right now. Top industries. Oh, look, one of his top contributors, Bain Capital. If you don't remember who Bain Capital is, during the 2012 election cycle, we had Mitt Romney versus Barack Obama. Now, Mitt Romney, who was a founder of Bain Capital. Bain Capital is a company who specializes in basically going in, buying up factories, and then shipping the jobs overseas, liquidating the factories. The factories might be struggling already, but at least they're still there doing their thing and paying Americans money to do shit. Not with Bain Capital around. Nixon Peabody, same kind of shit. Ford Motor Company, Bank of America, Harvard. And top industries. Oh, pharmaceuticals is on the top 5 list. Securities and investment. And we've seen some of the shady investments that he's been involved with as well. Now, when you look at the type of contributions that he gets, the less than $200 from individual donors is among the lowest. As in, he gets most of his money, more than double, from large individual corporation contributions. And then he gets more than small individual from PAC, which could include super PACs, which is dark money, straight up. Now we have Joe Kennedy's 5 facts you need to know about his net worth. He's estimated between 18 and 43 million, mostly from them trusts I was telling you about. Kennedy The third is one of the richest men in Congress. I believe he's like the 14th richest man in Congress or some shit. It says 22nd here. Could be. He was previously the 21st. See, the thing is, his wealth is kind of bounces around because he's got like half of these millions are invested in shit. Joe and his wife still have nearly $1 million in debt. I don't see how that's even a fucking headline. Like, if you're worth, 50 million ish, what's $1 million in debt? Duh, of course you're gonna have a lot of debt, and it's gonna, to me, it's like, whoa, $1 million. I'd hate to be $1 million in debt. This guy, it's just business as usual. It ain't nothing. Really, when you look at debt, you got to look at percentage of income is what your debt level should be measured by. Not, oh my God, look at all those zeros. Joe has invested in pharmaceuticals, including the controversial Gilead, who went ahead and, when they seen a spike in Hep C, you seen a spike in the price of their medicine for Hep C. As in, it went up in the area of like 500%. So, shady shit. I mean, what's shady about it is where'd all the Hep C come from, huh? And of course, his grandfather would have been a billionaire at one time. In 2009, Kennedy, took the cash and stuck it in a bunch of trusts. And these trusts kicked money out to everybody in the family. Joe accumulated his money in the first place with a liquor distribution business and real estate investments. He did that thing where you make a lot of money when the stock markets crash. Once again, here's the Ezra Klein piece in Vox. I don't recommend it, and I definitely don't recommend listening to that fucking podcast. So that's all I got on this. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this shit, check it out later. Subscribe, watch some more videos. I'll be back with some more live stuff sometime in the next few days.